Hey everybody, I'm Tami Kiekhaefer. I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
And my name's Desiree Grimaldi. Welcome to Unguarded Minds podcast, where we talk about all the drama, trauma, and crazy things that life throws at you. Today we have a special guest, Ashna Kumar. We are so excited to have her. She's been working in the field of employment and career services since 2010, and she has been in love with it ever since. She loves helping individuals overcome any challenges they're having when it comes to looking for a job, at the same time helping provide useful tools for them to use forever. She simply loves helping people become the best version of themselves professionally and personally. She has been facilitating applied suicide intervention skills training since 2016, and this changing has changed her life. She has had her own experiences with suicide in the past and has never felt so alone during those times. She was the same girl you see now in person or on social media, except she was fake happy back then. During that time, she was also in toxic relationships and surrounded by a lot of negative energy. She was stuck in a black hole, but there was still a little ember inside of her. Recently, she became a safe talk trainer, a half-day workshop for participants to become suicide alert helpers in the community. So Ashna has a powerful story she's going to share with us. We do want to preface this that there are some trigger warnings in this conversation. Um, so proceed with your own best interest in mind. But welcome, Ashna.
So Ashna, I got to meet you back in what year was that? The assist training.
2016. It was
Those
it was literally 8 years ago this week.
Wow. 8 years ago this week. How exciting. I know.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
met at the Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. And yeah, I've gotten to talk with you here and there on Facebook and seen your whole journey on everything. And so now here you are. Who would have known 8 years ago that you'd be on a podcast? Who knew we'd have a podcast? I mean, you never know.
Right? It's wild of how life, like where life takes you, and it's always crazy because even through assist, like I went through work, but just the way it's changed my life in the last 8 years, and I didn't realize, like when I was there, I was the only one that I felt, I'm like, wow, everyone's a counselor, or they have this like their backgrounds, everyone's such a great, like, trained professional, respected professional. I'm like, I'm just an employment specialist. Like that's what I thought going into it. And but after hearing everyone's story and talking about suicide for the first time, that was the first time, Tammy, within that circle that we did that morning, that I ever said it out loud to a group of people that I once had thoughts of suicide, and I didn't realize that it was okay to have thoughts of suicide. But then, like, that little survey that you do on the first day one, if, like, do you have had thoughts of suicide, and no intention to die, or a clear wish to die, or uncertainty. And I didn't know it was okay to think like that.
Hmm.
And I'm first generation Canadian, so I live in British Columbia, Canada, and my parents aren't from Fiji. And so it's for not for them per se, but back in the day in Fiji, there's no such thing as mental health,
Hmm.
right? And so it was never talked about. And so I wouldn't say that my parents dismissed it. There was no awareness or education behind that. And so even learning what I learned during that time and that week, it really changed my life and opened up and kind of sparked that ember in me at that time to kind of, that I can do this. Like I have a group of people around me. I got to hear everyone's stories, and to realize that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm sitting here thinking I'm alone and Tammy's sitting there thinking she's alone, hey, there's two people right now. We have that common. So are we really alone? And through every workshop that I've now, even till this day, that I facilitate, I say that to every single person. I'm like, you don't
Hmm.
need to raise your hand, but I bet you there's one other person other than myself here to say that I was ever alone. And then I go, like, to each of the participants, and I'm like, Desiree, you're not alone. Tami, you're not alone, because you just don't know. And I can see people need it. Like, I'm like, feel your feels,
Yeah.
cry, right? You're allowed to have these thoughts, like, and being so multicultural and having such a global arena that I work with, the, like, demographics, it's seeing that aha moment, a light bulb. Because for some of these, they're students who are taking a program and they're newcomers to Canada, and so this is the first time they're hearing suicide. And some of these are educators or becoming educators, or social workers and things like that. So it's or we have counselors too, but it's always that aha moment of they're taking away, they're not just here because they have to be, because they have to graduate, but it's like they're from the day two, they're taking away such empowering information. Like, and I just go life coach on them. I'm like, you guys have the empowerment. Like, don't ever think that because now you've come here that you're ever alone. I'm like, things back home, wherever you're from, could be challenging and, you know, hush, hush, but you have the opportunity here. You've got people in your corner who will be an advocate, and I'm one of them, you know, and it's just been an amazing journey. And I'm just getting started, I feel like.
I feel like we need to back it up a little bit and talk about what assist is. Like, you and I know, and I was just thinking, like, people might be thinking, I don't even know what kind of training that is. What are you talking about? Can you kind of dig into that a little bit?
Absolutely. And so this is what I do. I go off on my passionate tangent. Pause me anytime. Pause me anytime. This is what my students call Ashna energy. I'm like, stop. And so assist is applied suicide intervention skills training, as Desiree mentioned. And so I always remind students, it's not ASSIST. We're not assisting in any means with suicide and ending of life. And there's a big difference in that. And so I say ASIST, remember that. Really important. And so I say it more so it's that the word intervention, I break it down and I say it's a conversation with a purpose. Heart to heart, human to human conversation with a purpose. And it's really when an individual has completed this 2-day training. And so for folks who don't know about, Tami and I had taken the training for trainers, so we became trainers to be able to train in folks in our community. And so I've been now doing that for 8 years. And so it's a 2-day training, 2-day back-to-back consecutive training. And it really just dives deep into an evidence-based model. And it's an insert model, which is called the Pathway to Assisting Life. And it takes you through different phases where it's your, you know, if it's a complete stranger and you don't know them, how do we approach them? Of course, like, who the heck are you? Why do you want to help me? And so it really digs into how do you connect with that individual, right, who may have thoughts of suicide. Really build that connection to being really then clear and direct about asking them about suicide. And that's where, out of the entire model, it's the toughest piece for individuals, because again, just like with the folks that I work with and that the demographics that I facilitate to, they've never said that word out loud before. And so it's again, making that comfortable classroom space or that workshop space where it's a safe space, but it's also going to be an accountable space. Like, you know, challenge yourselves, because it's that fear that, oh my goodness, I don't know how to help that person or have the tools. But honestly, all you really have to do through this guided conversation is just making sure that they're safe for now. And that's a big piece, is, you know, making sure that this individual that has thoughts of suicide they're safe right now. So I don't need to call 911. They're having a conversation. And assist really takes you through and how to empathize with them, you know, get to know the why are they thinking about suicide. Not so much, yes, suicide is the problem right now, but apart from all that, layer it down, what's got them thinking about it? What are those triggers? What are those traumatic experiences? How can we connect them to those individuals who can be their long-term care, right? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to assist, which is very much suicide first aid, it's we're short-term caregivers, and that's one of the things too, on how we continue to keep the energy or keep our cups and our emotional bandwidth at capacity, is so we can, you know, kind of have that healthy boundary of saying, okay, I've supported you. This is, you know, evidence-based model. I've connected you to the long-term caregivers. You're safe. I've done my job. And at the end of the day too, we're like, I say it like this, we're never going to walk away from an intervention saying, yeah, nailed it. 100%, you know, 10 out of 10. We're human beings, right? So we're always going to beat ourselves up and say, oh my goodness, you know, did I say the right things? Did I make sure that I connected them to the right resources? You know, and the most important thing that I took away from our training was that you need to debrief. You need to self-care. And we had that for homework as one of our activities. Like, you have to self-care. So I make that homework as well. And I remind them, I'm like, I always play a respectful devil's advocate as well. So I say, like, self-care is the biggest thing, especially when it comes to assist. And let's talk about it and see how you can put that piece. So we always have a little kind of discussion around self-care as well, within that program itself. And at the end of it, there's a beautiful safe plan that's built in that you take away as a participant. It's on a little pocket card that goes through safety guards and safety aids, talking about how to, like, so much in depth, where you talk about how disabled the the suicide plan, if there is one, how to guard against drugs, alcohol, and medication, making sure, is this individual in a safe space right now, or do we need to, again, put them in a safe space, right? Whether that's shelter or a family or friend's house, reminding them of their strengths and how far they've come, supporting them with mental health caregivers. So it's like I said, evidence-based. And that's what I love about it. And that's why I can be so proud and talk about it so proudly, because I'm like, it's not just something that I created. Heck no. I'm like, it's evidence-based. Go on their website and like all the information's there. So it's something that, like I love talking about it. I love teaching. If you can.
That's what I remember is just, some of my takeaways were the more eyeballs that are out there, the more you can recognize someone who's really struggling, and that's safe for now. And I don't know, I also remember, as you were talking, that because it's been a while since I did it and I didn't keep doing it. Sorry, assist. But it was like, at the end of the day, people don't want to die. And but you get this tunnel vision with suicide where it just starts closing and closing and closing, and you feel like I don't have any options. It's never going to get better. It just gets heavier and heavier. And when that person someone outside can recognize that, and it kind of chips away at that tunnel vision, and it allows that space to process. And so I think, one of the goals with the assist is the more eyeballs that are out there, the more people can step in and just say, hey, how's it going? Where are you? Yeah. Exactly. It's a pretty cool program. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I always say, like, I like, even my sister followed my footsteps, and she actually visited Denver, Colorado last year and took the T for T. Same hotel, same everything, different trainers, but 8 years later now she's doing it. Cool. And so it's been really neat. And even for her, she said, she's not a cheesy person, like we're opposites. And so for her to come back and say, wow, you are not joking when you said it's life-changing. Like, you grow these sensory goggles. Like we always say, tell our participants, like, it was definitely for me, like, life-changing. And it's like, I started to pick up things that I never used to pick up before, like even in TV shows or movies. And like, like, now I'm more aware when I'm, like if I'm waiting for transit here and I'm not listening to a conversation. But Safe Talk teaches you that it's good to be nosy at times, right? And so it's like, you hear a conversation and you can pick up when something's not okay, right? And kind of went to check in. And my sister's not comfortable, but I'm comfortable in being nosy and saying, hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. I happen to hear, and and I say, you can totally tell me to butt out. However, and so even Assist has taught me and given me confidence that even if I don't know how to help that person or what it's going to be, I don't have to have that solution. It's for that individual to come up literally for themselves and give them that empowerment. Just like you said, Tami, right? That individual doesn't want to die. It's that they want this moment to die. They don't want to, they don't want this. They're stuck in that moment. They can't see anything else. And once they realize that, oh, there's a resource for that out there, or there's free counseling, or there's this or that, they're like, I had no idea. Or why do I matter? Because you're a human being and I'm another human being, and you matter. Like, there's no excuse. You matter. Yeah. Right. And I'm the type of person making sure that, of course, I'm safe. But if it's with a stranger, I'm also not by myself or anything like that. Because that's another thing that Assist teaches you is, again, if you're on your own, and of course, don't approach everyone in crisis, right? Because again, you got to make sure safety first. And so you can always do, like, I know here, like in Canada, we have what's called like a wellness check, and you can just call a non-emergency number and say, hey, I'm at a park. This is the park I'm at. I noticed an individual sitting on a park bench. They're wearing a yellow jacket and whatever. Can you please come and check in on them? And so they'll come right away in an unmarked car, and they'll just check in and say, hey, we're just checking if everything's okay, because we just got to, so there's ways to still take precaution without putting our safety in harm's way.
Yeah. Desiree, were you going to say something? It looked like you were going to jump in.
Oh, sorry. Jump in anytime.
No, you're fine.
I don't stop.
So I guess two areas. Well, I have a couple questions. I always have questions, but one is just because you brought up Canada. I know we've seen a lot in the papers about Canada trying to pass things for like assisted suicide recently. So discussing this topic, like, what are your thoughts and everything around that situation? Because I mean, some of the headlines and stories I read, I was like, are they crazy? Because some of them just, like, I get it if you're in hospice and, you know, but like some of them, like, the guy was deaf, and I was like, that's not a reason. And family wasn't involved. They had no idea. So I would like your thoughts, or since you live there.
Yeah, and it's like and we got this just actually not even probably just a few weeks ago, actually, through Living Works. We got even an email on when these questions come up in the workshop, how do we handle it, you know? And so everyone's each to their own with their opinions. And so for me too, like, I agree with you in terms of if it's terminal illness, you know, hospice, you know, it's end of life care, you know, people around me in my own life have said, if this ever happens to me, just pull the plug, right? And I'm like, right? And at the end of the day, people don't talk about it because it's uncomfortable, right? But we're going to talk about the uncomfortable. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to say it. Why am I going to be selfish in being like, I say this with respect. Like, I feel like that if I'm holding someone back who's in that situation where it's end of life care or something, it's your life. You're going through pain. I can't sense your pain. I don't know what's going in your mind. So why would I want to keep you around to make you suffer even more just because you're making me happy? You know what I mean? Like, and that just hurts to even say that. Like, it's I support you. It is life. It is what it is. But this is the discomfort and like the uncomfortable stuff that we don't talk about. And it's not a big conversation, right? And so on the other side of things, when it's like, you know, the individual you spoke about, he's deaf. I'll say it like that. I'm not in their mind. I don't know what's going through their thought process, and I don't know how much support and help that they've received to see another light. But if they're in that much pain that they've decided, because there's a lot of process to go through to actually get that final like approval, right? And for someone to go through all of that and then to just, it really just, yeah, like my question was what's going through your mind? And if I've done everything that I can, like personally, if I know the person, if I've done everything that I can to support you and it just didn't work, you know, whatever kind of therapy or whatever kind of pill or whatever kind of session or whatever it is, I've exhausted those resources, the person's still in pain. I respect your decision, and it's painful and it sucks. But it's, you know, it's life, and it really sucks because it's like I lost my cousin to suicide just a year and a half ago. She was 24 years old. Okay, 24 years old. And this girl was in so much pain. She's a trained lifeguard. She could have saved her own life, and she didn't jump from a bridge. It was a little pier where she could have saved herself, but she was in so much pain. She just, and so that's where I'm like I'm still angry about it. You know, it was a year and a half ago because, again, my family knows the work that my sister and I do and how we're loud about it, and, you know, and how passionate we are and how we're advocates. And, you know, it was just sad because no one wanted to upset my cousin and talk about it. And then I always remind people, this is heavy and dark to say, but I'd rather piss you off than attend your funeral. And I don't care if you never talk to me again, you know, because and it's not that I'm like, yeah, I saved their life. It's more so I can be like, they may not realize it, but again, suicide is a personal choice. And if someone really wants to die, they're going to find any means to die, no matter how much you keep them safe, no matter how much, you know, no matter what you do, right? And again, that's another just shitty end of the stick. But if a person wants to stay safe where they know there's another opportunity, some individuals may not come forward and say, you know, thank you, Desiree and Tami, for helping me. They may just say, you know what, they were right. I don't want to show my face. I'm just gonna, which is fine, right? Again, I'm just at peace that you're taking another day. You're taking another step forward. That's it.
And I think there's that other piece of sometimes, like you're talking about, you never know how someone's going to react if you say, hey, are you considering suicide? And a lot of people are like, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to put the idea into their mind. And the fact is that you're not putting any ideas in their mind. If they're considering it, they've been thinking about this for quite some time. And it's not the first time they've ever thought about it. But by even just saying, are you considering suicide? Sometimes that can like pull somebody out of their out of their tunnel vision, like, oh, you just really, you just called me out on that, like you see it, you want to talk to me about it. And so always ask the question. Always ask the question.
Yep. I say, don't ever assume.
Yeah.
Right. I say, don't be an ass. Ask. That's what I say. I'm like, don't be an ass. Ask.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't. I'd rather again ask and get in trouble and then acknowledge and apologize. You know, oh my goodness, Tami, I am so sorry. I had asked only because
because I care.
Like again, it's like why. Yeah, right. There's always a reason why you're asking, and so there's never just like, oh, just because I was being nosy, or just because, you know, no. Why were you asking?
But I think, yeah, going back to, you know, Desiree, that question of like, is this something that's okay? Is this something that they're not considering all the factors? What is that process?
Well, with that specific article, and it was only a portion of it. Like, I just really didn't want to read a whole lot on it because I got angry in the first couple there. But he actually decided against it, and then they didn't release him, and they didn't contact the family. Like, it was just snippets, and I know it's the media, so you get pieces and parts of it. But at one point, it was like he wanted to, he was ready, but then he changed his mind, and the process still went on, and like his family was suing the facility and stuff. So I was just like, oh.
Yeah, there's gotta be some other
crazy
details in that one.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Because I would imagine.
But that's why we do this, is to try to get all the facts and stuff, you know, because a lot of times we see headlines, we see pieces, we see parts. I know that the rate has skyrocketed in youth over the past few years. I have a teenager. Tami has teenagers. I mean, my daughter has come to me about some friends who have stated it. And I'm guilty of being like, I know them, or I know the situation. I think they're attention seeking more than anything. I could feel confident in saying that. If it continues, though, like, we're going to have to tell somebody. And I know growing up, my father was like, people who talk about it don't do it, so just ignore them. You know, and that was kind of the talk around it, is if they wanted to really do it, they're just going to do it. They're not going to talk about it. And then even being in toxic relationships where, you know, the boyfriend was like, I'm going to. And I'm like, I mean, he said it so often, you know, at one point I was tired of hearing about it. So there's just, I think it's being talked about more. I don't know that everybody knows the right way to respond to it. So thank God for people like you guys who do go through training. I think more people in power in schools and things like that should be required to do those kind of trainings.
And I'm pretty sure anyone can take that training, right? You don't have to, well, like you said, Ashna, you don't have to be a counselor, or anyone has access to sign up to take that training and just learn more about it.
For assist, it could be as young as 17 to take it, and for Safe Talk, 16.
Wow.
15 with the parent.
Okay.
And so we've had in our public workshops for that, like, parents come with their kids, or not kids, but their teenagers, and it was awesome. It was such an empowering workshop.
And because sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to get involved, that's their business, you know. I mean, there's just so much to talk about around the idea of suicide. And you're right, your own personal belief systems, how you grew up, what you know, were you in a family where it was talked about a lot? You know, clearly not. And then that one training was the first time that you really were like, oh my gosh, other people think about this. Yeah, there's just so much to continue having that conversation, because it is such a, almost like a little secret that people feel like they've got to keep, and then other people feel like they can't intrude on that little secret, and that's where you get yourself into a very, very slippery slope.
And it's like also just trying to break the stigma that not every person who has the thoughts of suicide has a negative outlook in life or looks the part, you know, per se. It's like, you know, they're always going to withdraw, that they're always going to wear all black, or they're always going to just shut down, right? There's the opposite side, right? There's people like me who I did not change a thing about me. I was just as loud, and just as outgoing and just exactly who I am. And I had an individual one time ask me in class too, how do we support an individual like yourself? And I'm like, I didn't know what I needed until I heard it, if that makes sense, and it was right after, actually before I'd taken the training. This was in 2013. And I was working at a private college, and my director had come to me. I was in my office and just sat down, and I'm just like, yeah, like, how's it going? She's like, good, but how are you? And I'm like, I'm good, but what's going on? And she's like, well, a few people in the office and myself have noticed that you're not as loud. And that's all she said. You're not as loud. And again, it's in that moment, I don't know what hit me, and I started crying, and I'm like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And from there, it's when I was able to share with her, like, yeah, like, it's just that I've been having these dark, like, intrusive thoughts, or just, whatever's happening. But in that moment, like, again, if someone had just said, like, how are you? And just left it at that, I'm good, and walked away, I wouldn't have, I'm fine, but just the fact that what she said hit a trigger that needed to be hit in that moment, I didn't realize. So I just tell people, I'm like, don't really think of, like, I shouldn't say, like, don't think about what you're saying, but in that moment, like, don't think, just say, right? Because it takes more thought to say the wrong thing, like things like, oh, just go die, or you're lying, or like just negative, like wrong, hurtful words, versus, oh my God, like, oh, that was heavy. Like, oh, I apologize for saying that. What I meant to say was, so it's like, just give them that space and let them talk and just hear them out. Because this could be the first time, you could be the first person, and most chances that, again, saying that word out loud, suicide, that you're like listening to them and saying, I don't need to understand what you're going through, but I'm here and I'm ready to listen, and I'm ready to dive into resources or whatever you need to help you make that connection. Or, there's a new national hotline here. Let's see how that works for you, right? And so it's just having that backup, and that way you're taking that pressure off yourself. Because again, if I know I've done everything to help someone who may be at risk, I cannot blame myself if something goes wrong. Right. And that's with anybody. We have to remind them, like, you can have these conversations, you can connect them with the resources, but at the end of the day, like we said, it's their decision. And so if they end up being successful with their suicide, you have to make sure, whoever you are, no matter how many years of training or how resilient you are, you need to take care of yourself. Your body otherwise will catch up to you and tell you otherwise. And that's what happened to me. And I had the worst panic attack, and I just broke down. And it was not good. And so you really need to take care of yourself and find that safe outlet for yourself all the time.
And I think that there's those boundaries, like Desiree, you were talking about an ex-boyfriend who was like, I'm going to kill myself. And I was in the same thing, and a long time ago. And it was such a form of manipulation to make me stay, that there had to be a different boundary of, I can't keep personalizing all of your stuff, and I can only do so much for you, but then I also do need to take care of myself. And like, here's the resources that I gotta go, at some point. It took 5 years for me. I don't know, whatever, slow learner, but there we are.
7.
So, oh.
So here we
this
are.
was all through this assist training too. I was like, and this was like the timing of it happened when it was, and this is what I'm saying, it was like a blessing. Like 8 years ago today, it was like,
wow.
When I took this training, I took it back, and it was the first person was, well, my boyfriend at the time, but my ex, because he kept just saying, I was like, you know what? We're gonna do an intervention right now. Okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. And it came to that. Like, are you actually gonna kill yourself? Like, are you gonna kill yourself? And do you have a plan? No, I'm like, you know what? Again, are you willing to get support? And I know I should have been nicer. I never do interventions in this one otherwise.
But you get to that point.
It was like, I need to know, because otherwise, like, then I said, I can't do it anymore. And he's like, oh, but I'm going to kill myself if you leave. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. And that's the thing. Like, I took that risk. Like, and again, I knew in my heart that he wasn't, but and what was I was 23, 22. I don't even remember. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I was scared. And so I did it. This man is still alive till this day. Okay.
So is mine.
Right. And so it's that, like, after that, I was bad. I had another relationship right after that where we were together 2 years, but this was I got to know a narcissist. What a narcissist was, or is. And it was the same thing where it was, I'm going to kill myself, but it was a different type of toxic relationship, where before it was kind of the emotional abuse, the mental abuse, but now it's more so physical abuse. And I was scared only because, I mean, I joke about this now and I'm totally okay. And it's, when people say sorry, like I sorry to hear your story, I'm like, absolutely not. Honestly, like, I don't wish it upon anybody. And I say I have no regrets. It shaped me to who I am today, but I obviously, it's a shitty situation, but it shaped me to who I am today, to be able to be this woman, and have that. That's why I'm like, that flame just grew even more. And I want people to feel that, to say, no, that's not okay. No, you cannot treat me that way. And I stayed quiet for so long because I didn't want, we're a big but small community here, like we're a fusion community. And so it's always like, I don't want my parents or other people to think this or that and whatever, because now this is the second relationship that my family has seen that's fallen through. That was a serious one because we got engaged and we had a big party, 500 people, which shouldn't have happened, but it did. And so, it was like, I don't want to embarrass my parents. But it wasn't until my mom and my dad both came to me and said, you don't have to do this. It's like, we don't care about people, what they say.
Right.
And not everyone in our community is blessed to have parents like mine, where they have your back, because they'll say, just get married and get it done over with. Right. But I would like, that's where I'm like, okay, hell no. Like it's done. It's over. And even then, like, I was so happy that they had my back, but going through that and being, at the age that I'm at, and I'm not married, I have no kids, right? But I'm focused on my career because I never had that opportunity to do so. And my parents have, again, my full support in terms of, they're not pressuring me to do this. So follow the circle of life, and break that norm of, hey, we're in Canada. We, like, both my sister and I, we're thriving right now. We're, again, like I said, we're just getting started when it comes to having these conversations. I'm like, that's why I'm like, I talk about my trauma. I talk about the abuse that I had. I'm like, don't be sorry. I'm like, I just need you to know that you do have a voice, that you can get out. Because I also thought that one day, oh shit, Q, the first guy, if I left, he's going to kill himself. Nope. He's married. He's living his happy, jolly life. Good for him. Right. Again, second guy, I thought, again, I was stuck, or that I can't get out and people are going to think this way of me. That was a whole memory ago, like a whole lifetime ago. You know what I mean? And then it really helped me, be able to be independent, grow on my own. And I always say life is not about just getting married, getting old, and all that. Like, there's life to still live. Yes, that's the passage of life, and yes, we have partners, and but we can't forget who we are and our independence and where we come from, and a lot of us do forget that, right? And so, I mean, I have an amazing partner now. We've been together for 5.5 years, and so it's like we both been through traumatic experiences of having our partners unfaithful to us and things like that. And even on our first date, we're like, all right, we've known each other for a long time. Like, look, we're not saying we're going to get married or this is a forever thing, but do not waste my time. I am too old for drama, and it's just kind of laying out the boundaries. And I'm like, okay, he understood. I understood. We're good. I'm like, just talk to me. Like, I don't want this high school stuff of, oh my God, if I say this to Tami, this is what Tami's going to say, and overthink. I'm like, so it's like, I've grown up a lot, I'd like to say, and I've learned a lot, that I know those red flags and I know my worth, and I know when I'm being disrespected and when it's not okay. And I will voice that opinion now, like, no to abuse. And I will fight for anyone who's going through that, to be able to show them that you can shine. You can stand on your 2 feet.
Yeah. So you came from employment and career services. What was it, your experience that made you leap and take the SS program, or like, what was the correlation between the two that made you take it?
So this one, it's always not a funny story, but let's say it was through through the organization that I was working at, and it was supposed to, just to be in-house for the organization. And it was, again, a private college. And so the other trainer that was training moved on, we'll say, and they required another trainer. And so we had a new director that had just started, and we had gotten to be like really close. And again, like she was there and seen the challenges that I went through with all this relationship hot mess while I was working at this job. And so I don't know, I'm really cheesy. I say everything happens for a reason. I never, ever thought that I would take a training like this or be picked to go. And when she approached me and said, hey, we need a second trainer and we want you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And the first thing I said, I'm like, I'm not a social worker. That's the first thing I said. And she's like, you don't need to be a social. I'm like, but I'm also not a counselor. I know, Ashna, like anybody can go figure out the first set of dates, get your butt on a plane and go. Like, we need this training. There's nobody better. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And so like, and she's my mentor now, like, and she really pushed me to like, again, just go. And so I was trying to go to the one in Australia, but my regional wouldn't approve it. But I'm so glad that I got to come to Colorado. It was the first time I got to visit and I got to meet amazing
Australia
folks like
would be
Tami.
pretty
like,
cool.
It was,
I didn't have that
right?
option.
I know. I tried. I tried. And yeah, that was the first time I got on a plane by myself. That was the first time I visited a brand new state by myself. It was the first time traveling. Yeah, like going, because everyone at the training kind of knew somebody or they were like local, right? And I'm like, I'm the only Canadian in the room. Hello. And everyone just took me in. Like, and it was awesome. Like, I'm just like, wow. Like, and it was all sorts of people around me. And so, yeah, no, my director at the time just approached me and I just said yes. And yes to opportunity. And I didn't know how life-changing it would be. Cool. And now I'm training at so many different organizations and people are it's
you just never know.
I love it. I know. It's been an amazing journey.
So do you do trainings for yourself, like you own your own business, or are you affiliated with a different program now?
Yeah, so I started my own business about 2022. I started my own business. And it, again, just sparked from, like, I've been training, like, since I left that college. I haven't worked there in a while as well, but since they trained me, I go back and I train for them on the weekends now. So I work full time. Currently, I work full time at the Justice Institute of British Columbia, and then on the weekends and evenings, I run my own business around that time. And so I do life coaching, career coaching through Monday to Friday, and then through Living Works, I keep my trainer status active by doing at least 2 to 3 trainings per year, and then just same reporting process, things like that. And so 2 years ago, I started my own business in the hopes of hosting public workshops, like my sister and I hosting public workshops. And so that was a great success, and it's been awesome because it's whenever we go to these closed private trainings, we always hear the feedback of, where can I let people know, like my coworkers or like, I'm like, so I'm like, I don't know, like there's not a lot of training that happens out here that get filled quickly. And so it's just, I'm like, where are these people? Like, where there's no, like, what the heck, what's going on? And so I'm like, let's do this the proper way, where I can rent out a venue. I could, have these posters, and even for students, like have their GST number so they can claim taxes for education purposes. And now it counts for coaching accreditation and things like that. And so it's really cool. And so I started that. Now I host 2, 3 throughout the year publicly through, again, a local institute where I just host it on the weekends. And then throughout the year on the other weekends and sometimes weekdays, we get booked up with, again, the college contracts, and we actually just started facilitating at correctional facilities, or to staff members of the correctional facilities. And so that's been really neat. And we just got contracts for the Ministry of Child and Family Development here as well. And so it's, that's, I'm like, and like, I haven't had my coffee. I'm just taking sips of coffee, no coffee for me. And that's why it's like really exciting, because it's like the people who need to hear about it, or not who need to, but it's like having that, like someone going through the system, right, and getting those resources all speak the same language of assist. Like that's the goal, right? So it's having anybody have the training. And so if we can hit those, like right now where I work at the Justice Institute, we train police officers and paramedics, and law enforcement, disaster management. And so I've been there only 7 months. So now I'm just trying, I'm like, hey guys, like there's this training as well that you can take, right? I'm like, it's going to be great. Like I don't talk about it in terms of like, and this is the worst like I've been told a businesswoman should never say this. I don't care for making money. At the end of the day, right? I know that's the worst thing to say, but at the end of the day, it's more so spreading that awareness. Just like you said, Tami, it's like having more eyes out there, right? More eyes in the community. It's like if it's like if I can change your day, like change your mind, not change your mind, but open your mind about suicide and having these conversations safely and without you having to have all the tools in your belt. Like anyone can have this conversation. Let me prove it to you in 2 days. Let me prove it to you because I will.
I wish it could be something that is, the rate in Colorado, the suicide rate is so incredibly high, and I know it is in the United States too. But youth, older people, military. It's ridiculously high. Anyway, I was thinking, I wish that it were something that it was a required class or a portion of a class in high schools, just to like plant the seed. And I wish that it was a thing, but it isn't yet. Who knows? Maybe it'll grow. I know that it's such a cool program. And do we have links and stuff? Did you give us some, Desiree? Do we have Ashna's links to? We're just gonna see like how, and if we don't, we'll get them. But for people to be able to contact you and find you if they've got questions, even if they're not in Canada, they could reach out. I think they reach out to you and you could answer some questions. Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, is that the best way?
So what's the name of your business?
It's very creative. Okay, don't laugh at me. Ashna Crystal Coaching and Training Services. So AC Coaching and Training Services for short. I could not come up with and I'm like, I can't do this. I'm like, I have tattoos and I can stick with things, but I'm like, a name. So I'm like, I'm just going to use my own. So AC Coaching Training Services. So yeah, it's my name, and individuals can reach out to me either by email at coach.ashnacrystal@gmail.com. And I'll share that link as well, and or Facebook, so I can share the Facebook handle and Instagram as well.
Perfect.
I always say send me a DM, and I have WhatsApp. So if there's any means of social media, if it is not local and you don't worry about data rate fees and things like that, or international fees, just shoot me a message over social media or over Wi-Fi, and I'll answer on any.
Perfect. That would be wonderful.
Do you do trainings outside of Canada?
No, just within Canada.
Okay.
I think I'd have to look at how that could work, because I can technically train. I mean, we can technically train anywhere because it's all the same. But I think logistically, I'd have to take a look at what that looks like. But that'd be cool. I want to.
It looked like a fun vacation. That's a
write-off. Hey guys, what are you doing? Yeah, absolutely.
And they're all in-person trainings, right? Are any of them? Did you ever do like online over COVID? Virtual? Yeah, thank you.
No, so what came out of I know, I was like, that was what happened. That was a long time ago. I felt like what happened during COVID was a new program. A new program was born through Living Works, and it's called Living Works Start. It's not assist in any means, but due to the safety risk of assist, because we always want to make sure that individuals are safe, of course, but we've had people who've had panic attacks, who have bolted from the class, we've had to stop the class and kind of tend to them and make sure that they're safe, they get home safe. And it's always 100% of attendance in the room before we can move forward, or making sure that the individual's safe. And so that's why there's always two trainers. But it's during COVID, we didn't facilitate because assist has to be in person.
Makes sense.
There's no ands, ifs, or buts around that, just for the safety. So they did develop Living Works Start, which is again a 90-minute. I haven't taken it myself, but it's a 90-minute wrap up of what everything is. But does not replace assist in any means. Yeah.
And I think, just going back to what Desiree said at the beginning around, any kind of trigger warnings that came, that may have triggered our listeners or anyone out there, please feel free to reach out to myself. Feel free to reach out to anyone in your community. Maybe, Desiree, we could put the links of some suicide hotlines here in the States. And because you just never know what it's going to bring up for you. It might not be right now. You might be thinking about this later as you're going about your day, and it might hit you, and just, again, you're not alone. There are so many different resources out there, and all of our contact information is right here. I have an open door policy. No matter what, I'll figure out where you are and we'll get you the help that you need. So, yeah.
And like Ashna said, if you are feeling that way, you're in a moment. The sun is going to come back up tomorrow. It's going to be a completely different day. And you just got to get through that moment, and we'll have resources, like Tami said, and ways for you to reach out to people to help you get through that moment.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for being on our podcast, and it was so fun to catch up with you, and you're doing some amazing work out there. We really appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Tami and Desiree. It was, again, thank you for providing me a safe space, letting me be me. And again, and for all the listeners,
we love the Ashna energy.
If you ever need it, I'm only one phone call away, my friends. One phone call away.
That's awesome.
This Ashna energy goes to bed at 8 p.m. But otherwise, 3:30, if you need me, I'll be up in the morning. Ashna energy.
Love that. Awesome. Thank you.
Have an amazing day, my friends. Thank you so much. Bye.